Coach, any injury updates you're willing to share? Thank you.
No, Marion's gonna get looked at again. He took a pretty hard fall. Um, Rodney's situation is, it is what it is. It's day to day with the thought process of he did get a second opinion. Um, and but no real update as far as anything changing significantly either way.
Thanks.
Coach, how are you feeling?
A little better than where I was the last 3 weeks. Um, so I'm hope I'm over my whatever I had.
Coach, you have an interesting game on Saturday. I know when you coached in the NBA, I'm sure you probably plenty of times were playing against players that you had formerly coached, but it's little bit unique on Saturday where you have two of the kind of prime players from last year's team will be on the court against us. Just any thoughts on that? And is it a little bit different preparing for players you're kind of used to coaching?
Not really. I think that the landscape of college athletics right now, a lot of it's gone, much the pro route. And obviously Wesley Yates and Desmond Claude had a great season last year for both guys individually. Played well for us and we relied on them and in today's landscape, there's a lot of change that happens, and we feel, fortunate that we got to coach them for a year and we're a part of their careers. And like I said, they put up really good individual numbers and hopefully they look back at their time fondly here. But I mean, right now we're worried about trying to prepare for Washington and um, obviously, they get Steinbeck back last night, and he's a huge factor in the game. So preparation wise, we've got to be ready for Steinbeck's short role and his effectiveness on the offensive glass and his efficiency offensively. You're talking about a future NBA player that's 6'11", and we've got to figure that out. And Zoom Diallo's dribble drives are a factor, and Wesley Yates from three. All those things are stuff that we've got to talk about. Locating Peterson. So I mean, right now it's how does USC prepare? For Washington's really what the focal point is right now.
Coach, how did you come to the decision to use uh, uh, Cornish so much and Jordan Marsh not as much in that particular game? What was your thought process?
Yeah, Rich, I think that every game, takes on its own identity. Um, as I was in the hotel room in Oregon, I felt matchup wise that Ryan could have an impact. Obviously with the Marion getting hurt, that also opened up, 20 some minutes. Um, because he's averaging right around that, and he only played four, so that opened things up. And then uh, I just I felt the way that Oregon was playing, because they played so much zone, that Ryan would be able to help us. Um, and he played great. I mean, you look at, he took, well, I guess it's one and a half charges. One was a charge for sure, and the other one ref had a charge and one didn't. So I'll give him one and a half. And he also took one in limited minutes. So he leads our team in taking charges already in very limited minutes. And I thought he played great for us. I really did. Brunell has now worked his way in and gained trust, and his teammates understand what he provides for us. And we hope that, Tuesday in Eugene was a huge step for Ryan to also help.
Coach, going back to, you just brought up the point that Rich raised. Is that rule specific to just the Big Ten Conference? Have you ever heard of that before, where one's a charge, one's a block, and the third referee can't be the mediator, say, no, we got to go one way or the other?
Never seen, heard it. I hope I never do see or hear it again.
Yeah.
But it
Good.
is the rule. It's not a Big Ten rule. It's a NCAA.
Oh, first time you've ever seen that in your career, though.
First time I can remember.
Me too.
Coach, you guys are 8-0. You won both your exhibitions. Rodney's been in and out. No Elijah. Marion missed a lot of that Oregon game. How have you been able to have this success? And is this what you expected, or are things going a little better than you expected?
Um, to be 8-0 and to be ranked and to not have Rodney for, much of October and the second half of Seton Hall and Arizona State and Oregon, and to not have Elijah play at all. We felt when the team was assembled that we were as good as any Arkansas teams that we've ever had. So two teams that were a game away from a Final Four, some teams in Sweet 16s. Unfortunately, injuries have hit us. Nobody feels sorry for you. Nobody cares. But I did tell the staff, the other day, as a group, we did a good job assembling a roster. Unfortunately, the health thing has hurt us, but what hasn't, the locker room continues to have high belief. The locker room has a mentality of next man up, and the team was built with depth. So, super proud of the way things have gone. Elijah's rehab is I guess when you ask about updates, health, Elijah's rehab's going phenomenal. Um, I hesitant to say ahead of schedule, but the plan right now is to see Elijah in mid-January, and that was reaffirmed yesterday. Um, you know, with two different doctors. So, look, we got to continue to play as well as we can with a limited roster and hope we get healthy at some point.
Good morning, Coach. It seems like this team is getting pretty versatile. I mean, you talked about the next man up mentality. So is that something that next man up mentality you just recruited well, or do you have to go about like breeding that in the off season a little bit?
No, I think it's both. I think your off season, because we grind, hard in the summer and September and October is part of our, training camp that. So I think you can build it, but I also think it's the makeup of guys that you have in the locker room. I mean, our team planes. A lot of it's because we're winning, but our team planes are fun to be on. There's a camaraderie that's like past teams that we've had that have won at a high level. They get along. The locker room is, we have a lot of its personalities. Ezra and Chad have carried this lightheartedness, fun, joy. And then, I look at the competitiveness in games of Amarion and Ezra in timeouts are super unique. And then there's a pride in your role, and a lot of guys are, taking pride in the role that they're developing and still creating.
Coach,
Muss, when you say the plan is to see Elijah in mid-January, you just mean to like evaluate where he's at rehab wise, or to actually like get him back on the court?
No, I'm planning on seeing him play in mid-January in a game.
Okay. Gotcha. And
there's still a lot that's got to happen.
Sorry, go on.
He's still got to practice and, but right now everything is exactly where it needs to be. His healing process, his rehab process has gone great.
That's good to hear. And in terms of Rodney, with him out right now, obviously you've had a couple games without him. How do you feel like this offense has kind of gone about, moving on without him? How difficult has that been just as a coaching staff to sort of adjust? I know you were already leaning on Rodney quite a bit to kind of be that floor general type.
Yeah, last year we were one of the most injured teams in all of college basketball, and right now we're right on pace to to be one of the most injured teams in college basketball as well. When you look at missed games, some of the sites have missed games by guys that are super productive. There are not a lot of teams that have a 20-point score not playing and then can still figure out a way to win. But this team's done that. And, I think it's a matter of one player out. How do you plug the hole? And then, every player's got strengths and weaknesses. And then how do you, like right now defensively, we're good. We're good rebounding at the guard spot. Jerry's a really good defender and Jerry's a really good rebounder. And so, as his minutes have increased, that side of the ball, defensive rebounding and guarding situations, we become, you know, pretty good. And so we need to continue to build on that.
Coach Ezra Zara definitely is one of those energy guys, one of the maybe one of the grittiest guys on your roster. When he's off the floor, you can tell the difference, and you saw that in the second half when he returned. But with Jacob Kofi, how much are you trying to encourage him to be more offensive? We know he's a really good defensive player, but how much are you trying to get him to be a little bit more assertive on the offensive side?
Yeah, we really believe in Jacob. I mean, his 3-point shooting in practice has been really good. When we do our shooting drills, so we, much like last year, with Rashawn, he kept getting better as a 3-point shooter as the season progressed. He kept taking more. We feel that's a big threat for Jacob. And then when people try to close out and take away his 3-point shot, he does have the quickness and burst of speed and ball handling ability to get to attack the rim. So, hopefully he continues to gain the confidence. And I think he has offensively and from an aggressive standpoint. And also, from a coaching standpoint, we got to call plays for him and continue to evolve his game that way. But right now I think he's gained a lot of confidence in these first 8 games from an offensive standpoint. I think where he is today from where he was games 1 and 2 is drastically different.
Coach, do you think you have enough inside to compete with some of the really monster Big Ten teams?
Well, we'll find out Saturday because Frank is, Kepnick. He's been in college for what, 6 years. He's a big body. He's got a lot of experience playing either in the Pac, 10 or 12, whatever, and now playing in the Big Ten. And Steinbeck's going to be a first round draft pick, and they play those two guys together. And Somerville, comes in at the 5 when Frank's not in there, and they still keep Steinbeck at the 4. So we're going to face a front line, meaning a 3-man front line, that's as big and as anyone. But yeah, right now, I mean, Seton Hall's as physical as any team in the country, and Seton Hall's huge. And I thought we did a great job there, and I thought Arizona State had a really big center. But Ezra and Jacob are unique because they can slide their feet like guards. So we might not be traditional Big Ten, but we are way bigger than we were last year, and rebound better. So only time will tell. But right now, and we still got to get Gabe in the fold somehow. We got to get Gabe's confidence back up, and Gabe Dines is still going to be a factor for us at some point, very, very soon in a game. I feel that and believe that.
In the offseason, it didn't really seem like Jerry Easter was potentially going to have a big role. You mentioned maybe him being a guy for the future. When did you know he could help you and play at this level?
Just defensively in practice, I thought he was good. I thought he had an air about himself as a freshman that his confidence has never wavered. And so then when you kind of see that he's not backing down and he's got an inner confidence that's really cool to see. And he can get to the basket and he can finish it against contact, and he's for a freshman, his body from a physical standpoint, he's ready to play right now. And defensively, he's a really smart defender. And so for all those reasons, he's earned, it wasn't handed to him. He's really earned his role, Connor.
Thank you. And then one last one for me. Not a lot of turnover from last year's team, but the trend of you and your staff being so good in year two? It looks like it's continuing. I know it's early, but why are you guys so good in year two?
Well, I think the easiest answer, Connor, is year one, super hard. Um, you know, and I've said it before, like, the academic standards at USC are different than they are, at Arkansas. And so I was learning on the fly. I was probably recruiting players um, that maybe couldn't get into school that I didn't know until, you know, I'd already put time into it. And then you got to figure out, right now, three guys on the roster from, DC area. Um, two players that are incoming next year that are high level players from New York. So geographically, we got to try to figure out who's super excited about coming to USC too. And that's been a learning process for us as well. Um, like for Gabe Dines and Jaden Burnell, like they wanted to be in LA, they wanted to be by a beach, and they utilized the beach a lot in the summer. So all that stuff is things that we're kind of figuring out, and then I also think even whether you have some returners, not many staff, meaning all your support staff, everybody kind of understands what our culture is now, the demand, even though, year one is what it is, but then year two, there is a follow up with everybody else that's involved in your program or new to your program. So, and just having T Will back, and Joan and Britt, two of our walk-ons, those three guys, we didn't have that last year. Everybody was new. And so those guys have done a good job from a culture standpoint and an expectation standpoint. But I think it's more having a full year to recruit and try to, not assemble a roster in 2 weeks where we got to recruit to our own personality, and those are some of the things that you're able to do in year two.
Coach,
Mus, I know you.
correct.
Go ahead, Chase.
Coach, I know one statistic you guys definitely do not lead the nation in is use of timeouts. You've played some really tough competitive games here in the recent weeks, and you've kind of held off on calling timeouts. I don't know if that's just kind of your nature, or is it kind of just how you feel with this particular team?
No, I think, I mean, if you go back and there's been articles written, I'm a firm believer. One, I respect the opposing team. If you call a timeout, that gives them an opportunity to change what you might anticipate they're doing, where in the flow of the game, they're probably going to do what they're already in. Um, so that's a big part of it. Two is preparation prior to in game. And what I mean by that is, when you do have a timeout, even if it's TV timeout, or you're preparing your team for the next three possessions and not just the next possession ahead, have you prepared your team for in-game situation? Like our team knows what to do if we're down, um, 3 points and we're at the foul line with under 6 seconds to go, and we only have one foul shot. Like we know where to go, where the ball should be. Like all that stuff is stuff that you try to prepare. And then I'm a big believer that in the flow, you know, we can't advance the ball in college. If we could advance the ball in men's college basketball like the women do, and they do in FIBA and the NBA, you would see me call timeouts. I can promise you that. But without the advancement of the ball, it changes my philosophy of timeouts.
Mus, I know you have a game this weekend before then one coming up next week against San Diego, but obviously, a cool opportunity for you to go back there and play where you had played. I guess looking back on that experience, I guess what really stands out San Diego, and I know you are, still close to a lot of the guys that you played with there. That's a lot of time that has passed since you guys played together. What's kept you guys in touch all this time?
Yeah, I mean, I look at my time at the University of San Diego. The first two teams that ever made an NCAA tournament was, our group of guys. So the history of being the first two that ever did it. And there really has not been many in the history of the school that have gone to an NCAA tournament. But, and we talk to our own team about it all the time. A lot of the guys that are my teammates, anytime they come watch us play, I always have them speak to the team about relationships. And, to think that, I played with guys in 1987 and so many of them are going to be at this game and they're flying in for it, or they'll come to a USC game, whether we're on the road or at home. We played at Grand Canyon and Mark Maynard came and spoke to our team because he lives in the Phoenix area. But yeah, that time is super, super special. I was around, two coaches. I went to USD playing for Jim Bravelli, who in my mind's a Hall of Fame type coach. And then Hank Egan came from Air Force. So I played for two great coaches. One of my college coaches ended up being an assistant of mine with the Golden State Warriors. And I felt like, let's go play a true road game. My mom's going to be able to go to the game, which is super important. She'll see back-to-back games for the first time because she's coming to the Washington game, and then she'll see us on, when we head to San Diego. But just an incredible experience. Both my sons went to USD, and it holds a special spot, obviously, in how I look at my life and look back at basketball. But the teammate thing is the coolest thing because we have one group thread that's still been going, to this day with six of us, and then we have another one with our 87 tournament team, all 13 guys on that. So that just doesn't happen very often through all these years that a group of guys is that close together and remains that close.
Two more
I saw
questions.
some pictures and heard some stories from the guys. It seemed like you were pretty about your tan at that point. They said you spent a lot of time at the beach.
I did spend a lot of time at the beach, but a lot of great pickup ball. At that time, many of the Clippers, lived there. There's some, legendary story about Bill Walton walking into the gym at USD and picking five guys that were going to play against the four that he picked, and I was left out. And I was the one that opened the gym, and Bill Walton didn't know it. And I turned the keys or I went to the key box and turned the lights out and locked everybody in the gym. And I jumped in the pool, and those guys were in the dark. And finally, they came out, and I told Bill Walton, "Hey, man, I'm either in the first game or we're not playing a game." So there are some classic stories there from, but for our college team to be able to play against the Clippers and guys like Stan Pitcabbage and Jim Brogan, and there's some great memories there for sure.
Coach, can you tell us a little about the Ratliff twins and also whether you are anticipating signing any more freshmen for next season?
Yeah, so the Ratliff twins, super versatile. When you look at Adonis, incredible 3-point range, like incredible. I saw him go 8 of 9 or whatever in one game that I went to live. Darius, like Darius, like he knows, like I'm a 5, coach. I can play some 4, but I'm a 5. He takes great pride in his mid-range shot. He's a very underrated 3-point shooter. He's physical. To get two guys at 6'11", that are just going to continue, or they're really 7 foot and they're still growing. And they're going to continue to move up the recruiting rankings by the end of the year for sure. They're guys that are, 2 7-footers that are going to play in the NBA. So to us, going into year 3, wow, what two incredible pieces. We are still recruiting in this class, but we feel really good about the two guys we got. And if that's what it lands on, we'll be super excited. Two guys that are going to, be a huge part of what we do as freshmen next year. We're going to need those guys to have 2 really big years for us.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for attending today.
Thanks, you guys. Fight on Saturday.